you look at, Mr. Speaker, this bill, the objective of the act that we intend to draw from this bill, the objective, Mr. Speaker, is that we have an act of parliament to provide for the establishment of the Coffee Board of Kenya and the Coffee Research Institute to produce for the role of national and county governments, provide for regulation, development, and promotion of coffee industry and for connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, nothing new. This is exactly, dear colleagues, what the law was when Honorable Speaker was a member of the National Assembly of Kenya in the early, at the beginning of this century, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, somebody got misguided and went and brought a bill that amalgamated all the boards in the country, from coffee to pyrethrum to cotton to sugar to everything, into some crazy thing called the Agricultural Food Act, AFA. And that was the beginning of the problem. Mr. Speaker, what happened at that time is that the Kenya Sugar Board of Kenya was in its books in the credit of excess of 6 billion Kenya shillings. So the moment they amalgamated this thing, that money disappeared, and that was the beginning of the collapse of the sugar industry in the sugar belt. I think somebody had thought that since that money was lying there, the sugar industry was very lucrative, that they would use that money to then inject into other meaningless boards that were really struggling, like the Pyrethrum Board of Kenya, for them to start and to become afloat. They were misguided. Mr. Speaker, I therefore strongly support this, that the coffee board must be there as standalone, just like a sugar board should be there as standalone, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, when I say these things, I remember that many countries in the world, they produce coffee, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the #1 coffee producer is Brazil, followed by Switzerland. And unlike us, Brazil and Switzerland and other coffee-producing countries, they have various types of coffee brands. But as Kenyans, we have the best brand called Arabica. Arabica, Mr. Speaker, is distinctive. It has got a strong aroma, and it has got a strong flavor. And what's more, Mr. Speaker, the Kenyan coffee, Arabica, has an aftertaste of wine. So that the people who partake of coffee and they pretend they don't take alcohol, they are actually there, somewhere in the middle, taking alcohol and having more or less the same effects, and they don't have to go to their priest and repent that they partook of alcohol. Mr. Speaker, it is this uniqueness of the Kenyan Arabica that keeps on worrying me every day. That what went wrong? Because once upon a time, in my community, Kakamega was a serious producer of coffee. Bungoma was a serious producer of coffee, but down that enterprise has gone. Mr. Speaker, it's shameful that the plants were uprooted and without caring of where we were as a country. We're not doing badly. We were actually, whereas Brazil is #1 and Switzerland is #2, Kenya, we are a strong 16, number 16 in the whole world. So all we needed was imagination from the government to ensure that we support this particular sector. And where do people need support, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, where farmers need support is on pricing. There is no responsible government that just sits there and does not address the issue of the agriculture produced by their farmers. You must do something about pricing. Mr. Speaker, and as you do so, you tweak the price in such a manner that there is no farmer who at the end of a season declares a net loss. So responsible governments across the world give farmers guaranteed minimum returns. Mr. Speaker, sir, my predecessor, the senator for Narok, who I thought knows things only about milk, he has really impressed me. He has talked about, thank you, he has talked about the issue of cartels. Don't get it wrong. The cartels we are talking about in coffee, the cartels in coffee, they are not from pastoralists. The cartels, they are the very people in the coffee growing Kenya, in Mount Kenya. The cartels are the people of Mount Kenya. They are these people who understand the industry so well that they know how to play around with it, Mr. Speaker, so as to take advantage of the small-scale growers. In this country, coffee farming supports 6 million people. And of these 6 million people, 800,000 are small-scale farmers. And a small-scale farmer, Mr. Speaker, through your mind to Kilifi, is an innocent person who knows that they will go to the farm, till the land, and what have you, at the end of it, they'll harvest. They don't know about the complexities of local and international markets. They don't know the complexities of cooperatives and so on. So these are the criminal who then becomes part of the cartels. From that area, then takes advantage of this farmer. This is where the government must come in and protect, get rid of the cartels. I want to congratulate the Deputy President. He has been very strong on the cartels, but he doesn't finish the statement. He should finish it by saying who these characters are. I think one of these days, some people will take a record of people who complete statements. We want leaders, we be completing statements. When we say cartels, if the cartel is Karen Nyamu, name her so that she can then challenge you for defamation and what have you, and then you corner her. God forbid. I'm just using you because you are the nearest member next to me. Mr. Speaker, which leads me to the next problem that affects these farmers. The farmers are not, the 800,000 farmers are not the ones who manage the factories. So the government must help in ensuring that management of factories is not done by those cartels, is done by people of integrity. It's amazing that in the midst of poor small-scale farmers, you have billionaires who don't even have a quarter, an acre of coffee farm. Mr. Speaker, beyond managing those factories, it is now a stated fact, an agreed experience, that the best way to get the maximum from the small-scale farmers is usually by putting them in cooperative societies. The emergence of cooperative societies has also now become a big problem because the cartels now have moved into, swung into controlling the cooperative societies. So that the cooperative movement that was very active earlier on in our lives, Mr. Speaker, you remember, Mr. Speaker, the cooperative movement was so powerful at the beginning that the Nordic countries went and created the Cooperative College in Karen. Cooperative College was a gift from the Nordic countries because of the vibrancy of the cooperative movement in this country. A huge school, a huge institution. But thanks to cartels and mismanagement of cooperatives, the Cooperative College has collapsed. It has been converted into the Cooperative University. I see people celebrating that, oh, it is now a university. They don't know what loss it has attracted. What loss it has attracted to the...
What is the point of order, Senator Karungo?
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wouldn't wish to stop my senior as he is giving his statement, but he said that the Deputy President does not finish his statement when he says these cartels. He's talking about the cartels. Can he finish the statement when he's talking about those cartels? Mention them.
Mr. Speaker, the Senator of Kiambu is quite right that I should finish the cartels. Mr. Speaker, when I was talking about the cartels, I was not talking about the cartels from the point of lamenting that they are cartels. It was not from a point of acknowledgement that they are cartels. It was from a point of science, Mr. Speaker, that we have to break the chain, Mr. Speaker. And with all due respect, I mean well, if a donor can create, and colleagues, make time and go to cooperative university. It is something. If the Nordic countries saw how successful we were, I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, the distinguished Senator Gloria probably was in the kindergarten, so she doesn't know those glory days. The cooperative movement.
Senator Boni.
Yes.
You said the cooperative college, which is now a university. Yes. The change was a result of the actions of cartels. So then Senator Karungo rose on a point of order and said, kindly finish your statement by naming these cartels who contributed to the collapse of cooperative college that is now cooperative university.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, viewed it that way, I owe it to this House. The farthest I can go, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Mazayo?
I'm sure he's...
Bwana Speaker, ningependa kumsaidia ndugu yangu Khalwale. Mweleza ama kutamka tu ya kwamba hakusema kwa njia mbaya ama nia mbaya ya kwamba Mheshimiwa Naibu Rais anasaidia ama anashirikiana na wale watu wa cartel. Yeye amesema tu ni kwamba kunao wale watu wa katikati ambao nia yao ni kuchukua.
So what is your point of order, Senator Mazayo?
Pardon?
What is your point of order, Senator?
My point of order, hoja yangu ya nidhamu ilikuwa kuweza kumweka usawa yule chairman wa Rhodes.
Now, Senator Mazayo.
Ili asiweze kumuingilia katikati. Kuna tabia Bwana Speaker, nisikize kidogo na mimi niongee. Kuna tabia moja ambayo iko hapa ambayo kama ako na line anachukua line yake ya kuweza kueleza ama kuweza katika mswada.
Senator Mazayo, you're out of order. I wish you rose on a point of information because you want to assist a colleague with certain information, but not on a point of order. So I overrule that point of order. Proceed and conclude, Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I truly thank the Senator for Kilifi for informing me through a point of order, but so that I don't look like I'm running away from the things I believe in. When I stood in public and I said that cartels in the sugar industry were finishing my community, I completed the statement, and on the spot, His Excellency stood up and said, Mambo ni matatu. And thanks to the Mambo ni matatu, the nonsense has ended. So it is important the people in the coffee
Senator
sector...
Boni, in
yes.
equal measure, can you complete your statement just like you did when
yes.
you're in Western?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Speaker. So because the coffee industry collapsed several years ago in our area, where the cartels are now active is in the Mount Kenya region. I wish I knew their names. You guys, you are lucky. I wish I knew you. I would say it here now. And you will do nothing. Mr. Speaker, they are lucky, wherever they are. Let them thank God. But Dangwa, my brother Dangwa, pick courage. Do you know, Dangwa, I was a small boy in a town called Fort Hall. I don't think you know Fort Hall. Fort Hall is the town you call these days Muranga. When I was in Fort Hall as a little boy, we used to see coffee And Murang'a, Kiambu were beautiful. These ugly buildings you see here in Kiambu, they annoy me when I remember the coffee that I used to see. And that coffee was giving this country a lot of forex. We have dropped from where we were. We are now at number 16. And so that the farmers of this country can know that there is nothing in houses where you have to chase people every month to collect your rent of 20,000. Brazil earns, Mr. Speaker, at number 1, it earns $6 billion US from coffee. At number 2, Switzerland earns 3.6 USD billion from coffee. That's what we killed when some jokers came and cheated people in Kiambu and Murang'a that let us replace the red soil with buildings. We must, as legislators, fight and help the president in ensuring that this housing program can succeed so that people can be moved from that red soil, that rich farmland, to come and live in headquarters and instead leave the land free for development. I would have liked to continue, but because I can see colleagues are queuing, let me give them my time, and I support very strongly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this bill. Mr. Speaker, for me, I would like to say that I am a bit confused. And the reason I'm confused is that to me, government exists in perpetuity. And as Honorable Boni Khalwale has said, some research was done in the agriculture sector, and a decision was made to amalgamate institutions in the sector and come up with one big institution with departments. Mr. Speaker, I say so because this is not the first time we've had a coffee board of Kenya or a coffee law. We are actually trying to go back to where we were before that amalgamation was done. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether the key thing is just to isolate it from the bigger institution or whether it brings on board key material issues that we will need to look at. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to ask the chair of the Agriculture Committee to kindly favor this House with some opinion on what I have just raised, on what it means to continue having the institution that is in place and then starting to hive out other small institutions out of that without bringing an amendment to the bigger law to ensure that we have hived out, whether it is the coffee bill, and I believe the sugar bill is also coming in place. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, allow me to go to the content.
Senator Muma, Senator Gloria wishes to inform you. Would you accede to that? Can we proceed, Senator?
I accept, Mr. Speaker.
A point of information on why the Kenya Kwanza government is intentional on this coffee industry is that there are some regulations and there are some details on how you are going to control the pricing or even just incentivizing the farmers to push on the coffee production that cannot be attained within the bigger scope of that bigger organization that you're talking about. And that is why we are now being intentional and we are moving all matters with regards to coffee towards a specific agency that will just be dealing with coffee. That is my point of information.
Mr. Speaker, I would still request that the chair addresses the issue that I asked. I did not ask the intentions of Kenya Kwanza on what they want to do with the coffee industry. Mr. Speaker, coming to the content of this bill, again on the responsibility of the Senate, knowing that agriculture is a devolved function I would have wanted to see a law that strengthens the intergovernmental relations, that recognizes that agriculture is devolved, therefore the key functions lie with the county governments, one that therefore structures the law in a manner that actually respects that. Mr. Speaker, I would have also wanted to see a law that respects the principles of the Constitution, one that would be centered on the rights of the very people we would want to be helping with this law. Mr. Speaker, this law needs to be stronger on supporting the coffee farmer. I have not seen a strength in that. I have seen a strength on establishing an institution that is not different from the coffee board that existed before, and we all know that the coffee board that existed before ended up serving perhaps those people that are referred to by Senator Boni Khalwale as cartels. It ended up being a tool that was used by a few wealthy people against the majority.